Let's talk about our guest today. First, meet Connor. He is on your screen. He's a little circle now, but he was the first behavioral researcher at Microsoft, where he worked across the Microsoft Office portfolio. He also helped to direct Microsoft's New Future of Work initiative, focused on creating productive and engaging workplaces. More recently, Connor led the creation of a behavioral science team at Tonal, incorporating social science thinking throughout the customer journey to create an inviting and retaining experience. He's a frequent writer, speaker. He's published in Nature Human Behavior, a very prestigious journal, and behavioral science community builder. He holds a BA in psychology in psychology and human resource management from Illinois State University and a Master of Science in Behavioral and Decision Sciences from University of Pennsylvania. As you will see, is a pattern with our guests. James, a former Marine, is a behavioral consultant with a diverse background and expertise in a number of fields. He's combined his military leadership and expertise and his interest in behavioral science to join the management consulting sphere. He focuses on organizational culture, specifically sustaining improvements in team morale, productivity, and effectiveness. He's written about a wide range of subjects like servant leadership, cultures of empowerment, imposter syndrome, generational difference in the workplace, and the interdependence of culture and organizational processes. He also founded and serves as the government's committee chair for the Weekly Fight, an organization devoted to supporting veterans and their experiences with post-traumatic stress. He holds a BA from VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, in Homeland Security, and an MBA from Villanova University. And then he's just like, I'll get another master's. Go ahead, make me, in behavioral and decision sciences from the University of Pennsylvania. And lastly, we have Daniella. She is part of our IL team. She works in the consulting wing and she works in the learning and development wing. And she's awesome. She coaches clients in Irrational Labs behavioral design methodology and supports IL's professional education arm. Prior to work at IL, Daniella worked in user experience research and design at, say it for me, Daniella.
Kyocera,
Document Solutions, nicely done. It was like a Mad Lib. And in business development at Design It, a global strategic design consultancy. She has a BA in psychology from the University of Virginia, and you guessed it, an MS in behavioral and decision sciences from the University of Pennsylvania. So with that, Daniella, I'm going to hand this over to you, and then I'll stop sharing.
Okay, great. So it's going to be a quick handoff because I'm just introducing our managing director of the Behavioral and Decision Sciences program, Luis, who's on with us right now and is going to provide a quick overview of the program, just for those of you who may not be familiar, but also just for you all to get a sense of what a program like this looks like. So I'll pass it on to Luis. Take it away. You can go ahead and share your screen.
So thank you, Daniela. Good afternoon, everybody, the hosts, Ryan, and everybody listening. It's a pleasure. It's a great initiative that the alumni like James, Connor, and Daniela leading this great initiative. So I'm just going to give you a very quick glance of what is the program nowadays and the opportunities that you can face here. Please give me a thumbs up if you are seeing the slides.
Yeah, so Luis, this is the beta testing thing. It's not letting me stop sharing. Oh, there it is. Now you should be good. Sorry.
Okay, it's
bring it on, Luis.
Delivered. Stage is empty, says. Let me give it a try again.
It is very dramatic. It says the stage is empty. It's very dramatic.
Okay, now I'm uploading. Oh, excellent.
There you go.
So let's see if I do this, what happens? It says it, brother. Okay, so thank you, everybody. The title ABDS program, Thinking About Behavioral Degree. It's awesome that this is an initiative led by alumni, so I'm just going to give you a very quick glance. I'm going to talk very briefly about the program curriculum. I'm going to give you some insights about the industry opportunities that you can face and the program offers nowadays. And I'm going to give you some options of how to stay connected if you are interested. I saw actually Roberta that might apply this year, so hi to you. I also saw a couple of students like David Lagner, so I think we're looking forward to see you in the next weeks.
Hey, Luis, Luis, you just go to full screen share. Some people are saying that it's a little cut off, so or you go to like presentation mode or whatever.
Okay, like this?
That's better, but you should be able to like hit present, I believe, right? Where it fills the whole screen.
Better?
That's definitely better. PC users, what button do we press to go to presentation? I think slideshow at the top.
Yeah, the important thing is that you see the slides fine. Do you see it complete?
I think at least we can see the complete thing, so we can roll with that for sure.
Okay. So the program was born basically 6 years ago by the founder academic director, Cristina Bicchieri. She is world-renowned for her work in behavioral sciences and social norms specifically. So she decided to put together a group of fun and expert instructors. And now we are in the 6th cohort starting in September. What is the program about? Nowadays, it's 6 core units that we expect the students to complete in a full-time basis between September and May, and some of you might decide to stay until summer or the late fall, but the expectation is to be on a full-time basis for 1 year, and we give the opportunity to part-timers, but it depends on the interest of the opportunities of the courses. 5 courses are compulsory, so you can see it on your right side of the screen. We provide a course on behavioral sciences, theory and application of experimental methods. How do you conduct lab experiments, online experiments, and field experiments? We also nowadays have an applied unit to emphasize the professional angle of the master. So students must take at least one of the 3 courses. One is norms and knowledge, that Professor Bicchieri teaches, organizational behavior, that is taught by a professor from Wharton, and behavioral public policy. Then we have a 3rd course on judgments and decisions, just providing the broad insights and biases that human beings have in their daily lives. Then we have a quantitative unit that students more based on a placement test. You can choose one in fall or one in spring. And nowadays we have the Capstone Experience Research Project, which is a course that goes over a 1 year. And the first fall, you will have some tools and some experience with the experts outside in the real world. And in spring, you have the design challenge, which I will explain later on. And then you can take 4 electives, 2 of them at the School of Arts and Sciences, and 2 of them you can complement your profile with the schools and courses outside of MBDS. So you can see all the details in the student handbook. It was revised a couple of months ago, so it's very detailed, and everything is on the website, which I will share at the end, so you can just deeper in that document. Then we have very interesting exclusive industry opportunities. First of all, we have the design challenge. As I mentioned, it's a competition that we have in spring, where we pair students into teams, and we make them compete to answer projects that our industry partners give us. No? So it's a great opportunity not only for you to get more professional, real-life industry type of projects, but also to build the connections with them, thinking about transitioning to a more stable position after the program. Nowadays, we have a lot of cooperation as well with the Center for Social Norms and Behavioral Dynamics. Actually, we are on the same floor, and sometimes we build projects with international organizations. And nowadays, we were actually meeting some private companies from New York. So it's a matter of just engaging more with the program and engaging more with the center to see what kind of collaborations you can engage with us while you are also learning in your courses during the year. And of course, we have the possibility to partner us if you have your own network outside, because in some cases you build connections, you know people outside. So it's also, please bring it to us so we can help each other. No? One of the fun courses is this Capstone experience. As I was mentioning, it's important behavioral science training, and it helps to transition to the professional work in fall, in spring. So in fall, what do we teach? We teach the essential research methods that behavioral scientists usually use in their daily lives. So a little bit of quantitative measures, a little qualitative insights. We provide some frameworks that nowadays the leading people in industry are using, and how that can inform the behavioral insights and the decision-making processes when the behavioral scientists need to deploy their answers to work. And as I was mentioning, in the spring, we have this design challenge. So this is just on some pictures on your right side. No? So you might question, okay, what type of industry affiliates you have? So we have worked, for instance, with Deloitte, Ipsos, the Irrational Labs, as we are currently doing right now. With pharmaceuticals like Merck, we have a Pattern Health, etc. We also engage with Ernst & Youngs in the past, big organizations like the OECD, the International Resource Committee, the Development Bank, and the World Bank. All of them have, in some way or another, contributed to our development in the last months.
Hey, Luis, can you click through the slides? We're still on Professor Christina. Yeah, cool. So,
you should have mentioned this.
yeah, people were like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, Daniela. Well, in any case, this is this is part of testing the programs, no? No, I mean, I have been scrolling down. So just to give a quick glance again, this is the curriculum. You can see on the right side that, as I was mentioning, the core courses and the electives is up to you. Then I was providing the cover of the new handbook. Then it was the exclusive industry opportunity. So I started from the design challenge to the center of social norms and behavioral dynamics, and then the possibility to partner with us. I hope you are seeing it now. Then we have the capstone experience slide. That why is it important for behavioral scientists working nowadays outside in this type of topics? No, in fall we have the researcher essential methods and tools. And then we have that opportunity to discuss with industry partners that they come and talk about the work that they are doing nowadays. And then in the spring, you have the design challenge. Then these are the last slide where we ended up, the industry affiliates on the right side, the logo of them. And then we provide also some networking opportunities. I just include two of them. Nowadays, we have these MBDS notch units where we try to cluster together to provide some expertise and more focus-oriented interest in some of subjects. So we have finance and management, public policy and international development, environment and sustainability, consumer behavior, marketing and e-commerce, and then also academia for those interested in transitioning to more academic research. So the idea is that we pair all the students in that cluster of interest, and they can increase the synergy between their knowledge, not only among them, but also thinking of creating fun events during the year. On the right side, you can see our exclusive private group in LinkedIn, where we currently post a lot of opportunities that we come across, not only from the program, but also even the alumni nowadays is very active posting options for current students, and also students like Connor and James that might find good opportunities for them. No? Then nowadays, you might answer what kind of students we have. This is some raw values from a couple of years ago. So we have half of them are international students that in total represent around 22 countries. More than 50% of them have matriculated directly after they're from the workforce. No? 15 plus subjects of students with their specialty in different areas in their undergraduate. And we have 60%. This year is like slightly 5 percentage points higher, so around 65% of our students are women and are interested also in the STEM features of our program. How to stay in touch, and this is the last one with some information. I provide some links that perhaps Daniela, Connor, and James can share with those attending this panel. First, the website. Second, some MBDS monthly newsletters that if you sign in, you can stay connected and know all the fun activities and interesting values that we are providing here. Nowadays, we have also the Twitter and some Instagram account, and I also include the LinkedIn page for those that are interested in following that possibility there. Thank you.
Excellent, Luis. Thank you so much. We absolutely.
Let me. How do I?
Yeah.
Stop sharing. Good.
Yeah, you go to the share. There you go. Awesome. Yeah. So Daniela, can you bring everybody to the stage?
Yep. Hang on.
And then we could actually put Luis in the wings.
Yep. There we go.
So welcome everybody. It's great to have you here. We have some basic questions today to kind of get things rolling. James, I want to start with you because obviously your background is the wackiest in a very positive way. But how did you end up at Penn in a behavioral science degree? You did so many interesting things, and then tell us. Do tell.
Yeah, it was pure dumb luck, to be honest with you. I mean, I got out of the military, and as some people might know, the deal that you get if you serve for a certain amount of time, you get a little bit of a perk when it comes to tuition assistance for any type of like degree that you pursue, and you get 4 years of it. And since I already had my undergraduate degree, I put it towards 2 master's degrees, one of which being my MBA at Villanova, and the second of which being the master's in behavioral decision sciences at Penn. And I really wanted to do something regarding or in the human behavior field, simply because whenever I was in Afghanistan and during my time on active duty in the Marine Corps, I had the opportunity to do psychological operations. And as you can probably imagine, it's probably a little bit more Hollywood than you might think in your head. It's a little bit more boring in reality, but it really focused on influencing human behavior for different reasons that some might consider nefarious. But at the end of the day, it was fascinating because a lot of the same rules applied. And I wanted to know how to do this in a more altruistic manner. And I just started searching around and just thankfully found Chris Nave, and I found the program whenever it was just in its infancy. So I like to tell people I snuck in because, a knuckle dragging Marine such as myself isn't necessarily the first person that you think about going through a behavioral science program at Penn. So that was really the origin of my story when it comes to joining the program.
Well, that's very cool. I do love the way that you pronounced psychological operations because it sounds less nefarious than psyops.
Yeah.
That was nicely done. Nicely done. Cool. So we're going to hear more about what you've done then. But Connor, to you, how do you go from I'm in Chicagoland? You might be a native Illinoisian if you went to ISU. I don't know. You are. Okay. So how do we go from Illinois State to Penn?
Yeah, so I left Illinois State to join Deloitte right out of college, and I was doing human capital management consulting. So for those of you not familiar with it, think big transformations, cultural changes, digital transformations or digital implementations, mergers and acquisitions. How do we make these two companies turn into one and have similar processes? I wound up falling more on the digital implementations, and these were giant projects where you'd be implementing a system like a Workday human capital management or SAP or another one of these Salesforce would be names that you may be familiar with. But it whenever you're deploying a system like that, it would be nice if it was as easy as switching a button, and that's how they generally or switching a switch. That's how they generally bill it as. But in reality, there's a lot of people that do processes, whether it be in a system or occasionally on paper, that need to now learn this system and then even more so to realize whatever benefits are going to happen to actually adopt that system. There we go. So they bring in companies like Deloitte to do these large change management programs. And in reality, what that ultimately distills down to is they take more of a traditional change approach where they unfreeze the people, which is get them prepared for change. They make the change, which is in from a consultant's side, it is building a bunch of material, training that material, and then pretty much saying, okay, now go change. And then once that change happens, you're supposed to refreeze it or get them solidified with those new approaches. So I was sitting there doing this type of work and thinking to myself, these don't work all the time. And there's actually a lot of problems with this. And the more that I looked into the academic literature on it, I was like, there's this whole philosophy of giant scale change management just doesn't seem like the best approach. And it seems like there's a lot of wasted opportunity here. And I think that it's because of that. Let's go build something, train people, and then tell them to change. And for anybody that has some background in behavioral science, that knowledge generally is not enough to cause people to make a change. And so I was like, okay, if this whole waterfall change management approach isn't working, what's a more agile approach? As I was reading and learning more about product development, and behavioral science is that, in my opinion. It is this iterative approach of creating change where you build something, you see how it fits. If it causes change, you learn from it, you build it better, and then it changes more ideally. So that was, I was like, this field seems like it's going to be a better approach at creating change than what I'm currently doing. So I'm going to go in and dial in on that. And, similar to James, I just heard about the program from my network somehow, and it was in its infancy. I got accepted into the first round, which was like was great, and it was as similar to James. I looked and think about the 10% or whatever the acceptance rate is now. I'm like, whew. I mean, I'd hope to think I still could get in, but nonetheless, wound up postponing it and did the second session with James. But yeah, that's how I wound up over into the program. Ryan, I think you're muted.
Ryan, yeah.
That's a classic Zoom error. I love the way you talk about change management. You're like, you build it, you implement it, and then you tell them to do it. I'm going to call this the field of dreams methodology. We build it and they will come. But this is not the case. It takes a lot. It worked well in the Field of Dreams movie, for the record, but does not work well in real life. So very cool. It's the Field of Dreams fallacy. We've now coined that term here. You're welcome, everybody. You witnessed a moment. With that, to Daniella, how do you end up? I know your story, Daniella, but I'm going to pretend I don't. How did
I
you
know.
Penn?
Sorry you have to hear it again. My background prior to Irrational Labs, as well as the program, was in user experience design, and I found that basically through. I ended up in design after learning about behavioral science, although we weren't calling it that. In my 4th year of undergrad, I studied psychology, and it was this class on social behavior and social change. And my professor was referring, oh, too bad. It's already been coined, Ryan.
This is a heartbreaker. Continue with your story. I'm going to read the whole publication. Go on.
But anyway, so my professor referred to interventions as wise interventions, and throughout the course just showed us examples of people using essentially what he would call common sense programs, a lot of times in policy or just program development, where something would be really well intentioned, designed to help people, and it would have these backfiring effects of not doing what it was designed to do, what was expected. And this was like really disheartening to me, and I was like, okay, how do I get there so that I can actually be among the people that's helping to make sure that these programs and policies we're putting in place are actually helping the people that need those services. So I ended up in user experience design. That kind of felt like the right direction. I didn't know this term behavioral science at that point. And what I really have enjoyed that and learned through that experience, that there is a lot of opportunity for a more evaluative based approach to the design methodology. There's still a lot of assumptions that just kind of go unchecked often in the product design process. And I wanted to kind of, as I started to learn more, Irrational Labs is actually one of the first places that I found out about as I started to learn about behavioral science and learn this terminology and saw what they were doing and was like, wow, this feels like the perfect complement to what I feel like is missing in the work that I'm doing right now. And kind of did this own learning journey that hopefully this event will help all of you with, but decided that, this is something that I was so personally interested in that it felt like the right investment of time and money to do a master's degree, and pick the Penn program specifically because of the language, comparing the language of that program to the others. It was much more focused on applying the insights that you learn from the program to your whatever job you already have or real world applications. Whereas I felt like language at the other programs was maybe a bit more centered around academia and theory, and often culminated in a thesis, which was less interesting to me personally. So that was kind of how I ended up at this program specifically. Mute again, Brian.
I'm just going to have to leave it unmuted. I just assume my puppy's going to come in and start howling. So best to be muted, But so the field-based experience was really what drew you to the master's program. You knew you'd get some experience in the field. And I do know that you were one of the first people to take the Irrational Labs self-paced course 2.5 years ago, to prepare for your master's degree. Yes.
Yep, that basically confirmed that I was super excited about this world. It was like a, small investment that I was able to get my company to pay for, and then, it confirmed that I was interested in taking this bigger step, basically.
That's awesome. So the next question that I'm going to round robin on, and Connor, I'm going to start with you, is the before-after thing. So before I went to UPenn, I would have tackled a problem like X, but after I tackled it like Y. So you think you can take the lead on that, Connor? Can you think of how the behavioral science background changed your thinking and your processes?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot because I want to ultimately try to write an article that just kind of describes how I tackle problems to see how it differs from other people. And so I'll give the best answer I can, which is, and right now I'm still kind of thinking it through, but I mean, I graduated from college. First job was in a consulting company, so I was taught a very formal process. I always call my years at Deloitte. I see Katie, you also were at Deloitte for a while. So maybe you have a similar experience, but I call it business boot camp because it really was, and sorry for the reference, James, but because it really was like a crash course on how to take a formal approach to building a solution to any sort of problem. But it was very formal. It was, really try to develop as much information as possible on it, then find the correct framework, fit the information into that framework, and then create your answer around that framework. And I love the framework aspect of it. I still am a very framework heavy person, but I think the thing that really changed during my time in the master's was that I try to be more creative, and I have a creative step in that before I go and fit the framework. So now I still focus on gathering context, really trying to understand the stakeholder relationships. I would say that in that piece, the additional aspect that was added from the master's is that I try to understand people's incentives, because people don't always say what they actually are trying to achieve by something. And I see this in tech a lot, that PMs say, we want to build the best product. We want to build something that's going to change the world. But then their incentives are build something that is used. And so they build something that is used, not to actually change behaviors. And so when I'm doing that context gathering, I'm trying to go a step further in understanding incentives, motivations, et cetera. Then I take that information and I go, how would I try to go and I'm laughing at the comments. How would I go in there, and with this context, how would I solve it? And I try to build my own mental framework first. And I think that that's part because of the exposure to all of the different ideas that I got at Penn. And since then, of just continuously learning in this field and seeing all the different frameworks out there, I try to fit it into my own mental model. Then I take that mental model and I compare it to what could be achieved by the current models. I'll go and I'll look at some, like Mindspace always comes to mind, even though I know it's changed and now it's East and but I think of those traditional models and how would I be able to fit it into, or I like Steve Wendell's writing on like the define model or the create model. I'll go and consult those and say, okay, well, how would that model approach it? And how does that compare to mine? And then I either will readapt it and fit it into one of those current models, or I'll go and build my own framework of some sort of hybrid of everything. So to directly answer your question and sum it up, I used to take a formal process, really try to fit the information into one framework and then move forward with that framework. Now I add that creative piece where I'm trying to see how can I solve the problem, then go and consult the frameworks and then create some sort of amalgamation of it all.
That's excellent, Connor. You should know you have all kinds of people, like inquiring minds want to know what frameworks you're specifically referring to, Connor. So you have a homework assignment while I talk to the other two people to share all the best links from your blog there. If you didn't catch Daniella's URL for Connor's blog. So thank you, Connor. James, what about you?
Well, I was actually listening and picturing what Connor was saying so much that I completely forgot what the original question was.
Before and after. Before your behavioral science degree, you would have, whereas after you now do.
Oh, man. Well, I think that, I can't remember who told me, but when I was going through the program, I remember somebody mentioning that the education that you'll get at the program will put a lens on, like, it's just a lens that you can never take off. And that is so true. And everything that I do, even personal, professional, whatever it may be, there's always some sort of behavioral spin on it. And, it drives the people in my inner circle crazy, I bet. But I just think that the difference for me, having come to the program post MBA, was understanding, like in the MBA program, you would get something like finance, accounting, marketing, those sort of like building blocks of just regular businesses, but you never really get the human element. And I think this program really gave the human element a chance to thrive for me. And so with being in consulting right now, you deal with clients from the government to private sector to nonprofits, and really, regardless of what sector they're in, the human condition is, like it's largely applicable, like our program's largely applicable to these humans across the board. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I think that I didn't really know how widespread this program would be for me in my professional life. So the things that I'm doing right now is I'm trying to understand and, like diagnose to the extent that I'm qualified, patterns of collective patterns of behavior, and working in the government right now, there's a lot of work going on in leadership development. There's a lot of work going on in culture change and things like that. And you have to very quickly fall in on these things and diagnose these patterns of behavior when there's not a lot of time, and frankly, there's not a lot of money in it, but it doesn't matter. You have to help people make healthier and wealthier decisions. And going into an engagement with the mindset of helping people make healthier and wealthier decisions is a completely different frame of mind than I would have ever had I not been exposed to the program. So I don't know if that answers your question 100%, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. It made me people focused rather than money focused or just process focused. It just changed it added the human element, really.
So what's a particular insight from the literature of behavioral science that you find most useful for you in the field? Like what's kind of a bias or construct that you're constantly returning to?
Yeah. Confirmation bias, without a doubt. I can tell you right now, I'm working with a client who is a very, very scientific client. And when you tell them something that they don't want to hear and you've got data to back it up, they'll shoot holes in it to tell you why it's something else. And you can kind of go to the mat with them, courtesy of the program, getting that sort of exposure to different methods of analysis. But confirmation bias is a very, very big one. And it also comes into play whenever you're actually trying to sell behavioral science, because whenever you're going out for a client engagement, you can't just use the term behavioral science. And that was one thing I didn't know, because it's so salient when you're in the program in a controlled academic environment. You think everybody knows what you know, right? And they don't. And they don't have a reason to care, because you haven't expressed that and you haven't explained it to them. So they've got their own biases, and that, status quo bias is another big one, that people don't want to do anything different. Like, this has been working. They haven't gotten fired yet. So why would a consultant come in and change anything, right? So you just have to battle those things, but it gives you more patience, I think. For me, I understand why people are doing what they're doing, because the program taught me that. It's not like they might not even know it's happening, but those are the big things that I've had to contend with.
Yeah, I love the way that you're like, oh, those two. You're like status quo and confirmation bias, hands down. Everything else, meh. But I love your point there about patience, and knowing how the brain is wired allows you to engage with more empathy and care, which I think is exciting. Daniella, I think your story is kind of interesting, because you've been doing the program concurrently with being contract here at Irrational Labs. So you've been in the field and in the ivory tower simultaneously. Tell us how these things have commingled into your thinking, your before and after thinking.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say not too much officially the after. It's been about a week and a half of after. I'm a very new alum of the program.
By the way, everybody write congratulations to, send nice emojis to Daniella. Graduation caps, flowers, whatever. Yes.
So yeah, not much after, like Connor and James. It's really interesting to hear their perspective, a few years out of this program. But I guess what I was thinking more about as they were talking was actually like how I've been reflecting since finishing the program. Basically, I think the taglines of my reflections have been that behavioral science is applicable to everything. But the challenge with that, as James was saying, is that most people don't know what that is. Either it's because of the language a lot of the time. And this is something that I experienced similarly working in design. A lot of people actually are designers in their own way. Maybe that's not their title, but they are practicing some form of the human-centered design process. And so similarly, I think more than people realize, people are kind of thinking this way, but maybe they don't have the words for it. And so I think what's been the biggest, I don't know, reflection point for me too is now it's all about being able to tell a story. Again, as James said, why do people care about this? Especially for people that, come from this program and then they're looking for another job. A lot of people in the program I know were like, I want to come in and I want to be a behavioral scientist after this program. The reality is that those jobs are with those official titles are few and far between. And so it becomes about you getting really clear on why is this important? What did you learn? What's the value add for whoever your audience is, because it really is applicable to everything. And that may sound challenging, but what's really exciting about it is that puts you in this leadership position at whatever job or place you end up at, which gives you a lot of opportunity to try new things and make an impact, especially in an area that is definitely continuing to get interest. And this is anecdotal, but for example, just hearing about how much the volume of applications to the Penn program specifically have grown even since I applied a year ago. So that's, one data point to argue for this continuing to get a lot of interest.
Yeah, I think so Connor and James, does that resonate with you? Like, so backstory, my doctorate's in interdisciplinary studies. So I always have to tell people, well, that means I do this, and this. By the way, and that, and the other thing, because you can say that you do everything with that degree. But but do you find after you graduated, you kind of have to explain to a lot of people, behavioral science, X, Y, Z. Did you find that was a thing, Connor?
Yeah, I think that it really depends on the audience. So I've worked two main jobs since then, Microsoft and Tonal. And Microsoft, everybody knows Microsoft. It obviously is this huge tech company, very established product development processes, has these products that are legacy products now that are very established. People know what they're doing, they know what they need to fix, etc. So behavioral science was net new for a lot of individuals there. It was, especially if you're talking to an engineer who has not maybe taken one or two social science classes as gen eds, but beyond that has been in a very technical aspect, it can be revolutionary for them. I was just at dinner last night. I was talking to a PM and talking, just sharing some of the work that I'd done. And she was just like, this is like, it's like design, but it's this whole other area of design. It was blowing her mind. And we had a really good conversation about it because she'd never really thought about how behavior plays a big role in almost every feature that she created, even though she's at a large database company and really like at surface maybe doesn't look like that, but people are still using it. So there's still behavior involved in it. So I see it from all the way there to then being at Tonal, where my team there, a lot of former physical therapists and personal trainers, those people knew behavioral science without knowing the words for them. And we would be talking and they'd be explaining something. I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's that connects with goal setting theory. And they'd be like, well, what do you mean? And I'd be like, well, there's this goal setting framework and it kind of suggests this. And you're actually saying that. You just may not have formally been able to fit it into that framework. So I wrote recently about the personalization maturity curve, so that I see this push towards as behavioral science teams become more mature, they're approaching trying to personalize experiences for different users. And when I was at Microsoft, I was at that first stage for a while of just evangelizing, just sharing what behavioral science is, just making presentations where I'd introduce, here's what choice architecture is, here's what social norms are. So very early stage. But when I was at Tonal, I was able to pretty much just skip that evangelization. Most people understood that behavioral science played a role and was more just, how do we apply this? How do we get right into it? Let's take those theories, let's build features from them, et cetera. So I think it ranges, but the more on the periphery of the social sciences that an individual is, the easier you can make the connection to this is what this field means.
So Connor, since you worked at a tech behemoth, Microsoft is one of the monsters. If you were to produce a greatest hits album from your time at Microsoft, what would be the greatest B-side intervention you did? The clip that everybody wants to hear when you're in concert. What is the thing that was most memorable at Microsoft?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was a feature. And I think that a quick feature that I love that I'll just call out, we have a plan your time away feature. People can look it up if you want, but it was a way to disconnect away from, or to prepare for disconnecting. And it was built around behavioral science philosophy. But I would actually say that it was the retroactive. When I was there, I helped develop what we had a separate name, but since then I've rebranded as the feature impact analysis. And that is probably my greatest hit during that period, was whenever people created features that intended to change behavior, which the product I was working on, Viva, the intention was it's an employee experience platform. And so that is trying to improve the employee experience. A lot of the features we built, we would ship them, and then it would be like, okay, let's hope that people use them. They use them, so it's successful. But as anyone that has used Facebook with the intention of creating friends, only to find themselves in a doom loop of, I'm watching videos about something that I don't even really care about, but it's keeping me engaged. Engagement is not the metric that one wants to pursue when they're trying to change behavior. And so I developed a process for us to use behavioral data to be able to measure the outcomes that our features created, where we'd use causal inference to say, this group used it, this group didn't use it. Let's use these metrics to see, did this group actually change their behavior from it? And that is what I continue to talk about, and I've honestly built my career around.
Oh, that's very cool. James, do you have a greatest hit? I mean, I don't want you to feel left out.
Not necessarily a greatest hit, but there have been a couple interventions that we've designed for some of our clients, and the ones who actually take it and don't put it on the shelf and say thanks a lot, that seeing that actually happen, that is by itself a greatest hit, regardless of the impact that it has, because having the opportunity to just understand people and see what's going on and just run an analysis or maybe do some sort of data collection on the front end to really design something that's meant to make people happier. That is the thing that really gets me jazzed up. And as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to jump right back into doing it for the state of Alaska government right now. And they all want a piece of this. And it just, there's no, like, being in consulting, you never know the impact of what you're doing. You just know how to design something that somebody might not even use. And so just the process of doing that in hopes that somebody's going to actually implement it, that's really it. It's not the best answer in the world, but that's where I get my energy.
No, this is exciting because now we're going to your tour t-shirt, James, to extend the metaphor, it'll be like James O'Flaherty. And then on the back, it'll say huge in Alaska. You know what I mean? or world tour, but only Alaska. So I like it. So we've got a bunch of questions coming in. Daniella, I'm going to give you the first one. And Sai, the hovering wasn't working for me to bounce it to Q&A. So I know that there's a groovy little Q&A feature on Crowdcast, and people are dropping in the chat. So I'll do my best to get to all of them. But Daniella, this question comes to you from the cryptically named person, Anonymous. I don't think they're world-class hackers, though. I think they're just a fine person with a good question. And they're saying, if I'm starting a master's in social and behavioral science field, what kind of skills, courses do you suggest I look out for in the program, Daniella?
So I actually already answered that question. I just sent them the link to Evelyn's blog post because I think, and you already sent out that link in the chat, but I would say that it goes into great detail of all the different kind of buckets you should be hitting in order to be an applied behavioral scientist. So I think Evelyn says it a lot better than I could. So I would say check out that link, and I'll post it again. So we can go to the next question because I think she does a great job of answering it, to be honest.
That's cool. Evelyn's one of our managing directors. And I do just want to highlight, like, at Irrational Labs, we have people with like specific BSci degrees. We also have a lot of people with masters in different fields that maybe got some training at Ideas 42 or another place. We have people with PhDs in decision science. Like, it's really cool to work here because people have this whole spread of backgrounds that come to the field. So I think it's just important to remember there's always a lot of pathways in, but they're tricky to navigate, I think, is the flip side of that. So Matilda has a great comedy question for you, Connor. She's like, Connor, can you help improving Teams, make people love it? You no longer work at Microsoft, but what is your thought on that? What's your hot take on that, knowing that this is not going to leadership at Microsoft?
I think.
Oh, look at you! You're like, I don't want the team in Seattle to hear this.
I've got a lot of friends there, and I've been exploring as I've grown on LinkedIn. I've realized the boundaries of, now that I have a small following, when I say stuff, people actually hear it. So I'll say this. I actually think Teams is a really good product. I think that especially with the Viva integration and all that they're trying to build out there, that there is a giant roadmap that they're working towards. I think that the best thing that you can do to improve it, and this is the political answer, so I'm sorry, is that they do actually really take feedback seriously through the little smiley face buttons in every Microsoft product. So if you drop some recommendations in there, people really read it. I know PMs there, that is like their source of where they want to get feedback. So anytime that you have suggestions for them, drop it in the little smiley face feedback, and then I'll answer it that way.
Awesome. Nicely done. You won't burn any bridges over at Microsoft HQ. I'm going to bounce over the Q&A. Oh, say it again.
I said I'm trying to work those political answers. I'm on that career path.
It's the election season. Good thinking. Think about your spin. I like it. I'm going to toss this one to you, James. I'm now over in the Q&A tab. Sai, I'm not seeing the cool hover over thing.
I threw them over, so you're good. They're in the queue now.
Oh, whatever Daniella did is good. Nicely done. So, James, how would you say the program has helped you, given there are a lot of resources in the public domain to build knowledge? So why not just boot camp it up?
Because you will never get the type of exposure that you get to other students if you were to do anything other than this type of program. And I'm not saying this is the only program out there for it, but a concerted effort focused on a very, very small array of items, i.e. behavioral science, in concert with some of the brightest minds in the world, is easily the best way to get that type of, exposure. And you're going to learn more from the students around you, or not more, but you're going to learn a lot from the students around you and those people going through these experiences with you than you ever would if you were to try to do some self-guided thing. Or I'm not saying that that's a bad way to go about it. You'll certainly get the academic knowledge, but the interpersonal, like the cultural aspect of a program like this is so incredibly important to your success, because it has a networking component to it. It has an educational component to it. And it frankly has just a human experiential component to it. And those type of, I call it learning by osmosis. And that type of experience is so incredibly valuable. And I think it's undervalued if you were to be assessing different programs at the very beginning and not necessarily understanding what it's really like on the inside, because it's really awesome on the inside.
Right. And I think your point is valid for any program, right? I mean, the network effect becomes more three-dimensional, if you will, when you're in the program. Yeah. And Penn obviously is a unique place to learn. Mildly prestigious, so I hear. Daniella, question we're getting from you is, in which way has this new learning impacted your work as a user researcher?
Yep.
So I don't know if that's the degree learning or the IL learning or both, but I'm sure you'll rock a good answer.
Yeah, I'd say both. When some people were asking about frameworks earlier, again, biased answer, but I work a lot with our framework, which is the 3B framework of identifying a behavior and then identifying barriers and amplifying benefits. And so what's really great about that framework, and this is something that as I've talked to designers and researchers, what's one thing that's really amazing about this framework is that it allows you to take an outcome, which is often what you're being asked to design or research around, and it forces you to say, okay, this is the big picture outcome, like increasing revenue that we want to get to. But you ask a designer or a researcher, like, figure out how to design to increase revenue. It's like, whoa, there are 1,000 different ways that you could approach that. But what I love about this framework is that it forces you to get to this thing called the key behavior, which forces you to get very specific about what it actually is that you mean by increasing revenue, for example. So one you might have some other good ones that come to mind, Ryan, but one that we talk about a lot in our workshop, for example, if the outcome is increasing revenue and you're a credit card company, maybe the key behavior is getting new users to add their credit card within the first within the first time that they sign up on your platform, for example, something like that. Something that's super specific, and then you could take that to your product team and say, hey, this is what we're trying to, this is how we're gonna, one of many potential ways that we're gonna get to our goal. Now you suddenly have this way to move forward. And so what's great just about behavioral science in general is I think it does a really great job of, as a mindset, you're always like, wow, there were a lot of assumptions built into that conversation. Let's articulate those and then figure out how we can validate whether or not those are true. And that's incredibly valuable as for anybody, but I think especially as a user researcher, just being able to see, where there's opportunity to get some of those questions answered that people may not even see as questions. And also, I think that user research has a lot of value. Obviously, as someone that's my background, I'll advocate for it. But I think that what behavioral science does a great job of is telling you, when you do qualitative research, you often hear about maybe what's going on, about what, like what people state as their preferences. We call it like stated versus revealed preferences. So stated preferences being what people think they want, what they think they're going to do in a given situation. And behavioral science allows you to say, okay, this is what we're hearing. We've got this rich context about what's going on. Now let's figure out if the revealed preferences match the stated preferences. When we run an experiment, is that what's actually happening? And so it just really complements it in this great way and allows you to be more confident about the work that you're putting forward.
That's excellent. We're running up on time, so I'm gonna toss this question out to everybody, and then I'm gonna also ask that you answer anything that you're able to answer when I go into my back end commercial. So I love this question. I should say answer stuff over on the Q&A thread. How would behavioral science degree work for someone with no tech or corporate background? Can you suggest some certifications or skills to develop this path? I mean, there's two questions, but I think the first one is the meatiest. Like, oh, I work in some different field that's not corporate. Should I not do a degree? Anyone?
It'll always be relevant. What you're going to do is always going to be relevant. And, I tell people don't necessarily identify any type of niche, because there's a lot of different avenues that you could take after a behavioral science or during a behavioral science degree. So let it come to you. I love finance. I don't know how in the world I got into that, but I like, talking about helping people make better decisions with their money. No idea where that came from. But at the end of the day, everything is about human behavior. Like you look at Apple, like they want people to be more comfortable with what they have. Chipotle even, like they want people to come into the store. Like everything is about human behavior. So if you wanted something aside from an MBA that will be relevant wherever you go, it's this.
Yeah, my quick addition is just that I think that the master's is a really great tool if you want to really create a career around behavioral science, but not everyone it isn't an established field. And so creating a career around behavioral science doesn't end with the master's, where it can with an MBA, where that's kind of a means to an end, or I should say an end in itself, that the master's degree in behavioral science is more of a means to an end. And that end might happen right away. I was lucky I wound up getting a behavioral researcher role out of it. I know a lot of people that it's taken years for them to really find their niche. If you want to just be a behavioral science practitioner in another field, the master's may not always be the best resource, and the public resources, the boot camps, et cetera, might be the better course. So I think that if you want to go all in, it's probably the best option. If you want to just learn more and have it be a specialty, there's a lot of options out there.
That's spectacular. So at this juncture, let's give, first of all, Daniella, you should have noticed you got mad emoji bouquets, and congratulations. There was a very good social norm that happened in the chat while you were talking, but I know you're so deep in opining and sharing your wisdom that you missed said flowers. But now, ladies and gentlemen, you can toss emoji flowers at all our speakers and thank them for their time today. While I switch over to the closing slides, if our three Penn folks, if you can answer any of the questions in the chat, go for it. But thank you again. We really, really appreciate everybody's time. Just give me one hot minute before I get my little deck up here. And Daniella, did you want to paste those links to? Well, actually, I can paste links.
Oh, I got it. You're pulling up the deck. I'll share them again for anybody that missed them.
Okay, yeah, because those are really rich kind of supplements to what we're talking about here today. So share screen. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so I'm ending with our awesome commercial again. But remember, we've got educational things. I think that a master's degree is an awesome thing, no matter where you get it and what it's in. But it also may not be for everybody, or you may need to kind of get yourself prepped to get into this space. So we offer these types of experiences that can kind of help move you in that direction. So we have the self-paced bootcamp. We have another interactive cohort in October, health specialization, and finance dropping soon. So please consider joining us on the journey. And when you take these courses, you actually become a member. So we have membership events. We have 3 closed events a month, usually. And then we have one open event, and this was an open event. So we are really thrilled that everybody was able to come today. Is Brad out there? Brad, were we going to run a poll?
It's not out there.
Okay, he was not able to get back in. I get it. Okay, cool. So I guess then we might follow up with everybody and just ask if you prefer Crowdcast or Zoom, because this is an open question for us. We know that there was a little bit of friction in terms of login, so we're kind of curious about how people did with that. But thank you all for your time, especially our speakers, and we hope to see you at our next event. So thank you, everybody.